All right. Hello, Couch Warriors, and welcome to another episode of the podcast. As always, I'm your host, Mike, and today we're going to be breaking down Aries FC 11. Now, I just went live and broke down Invicta FC right before this. Sorry for the slight delay. Had to do a bunch of stuff last minute, but here we are, ready to go. Pretty dope card, honestly, for Aries FC. I'm pretty hyped to see how it goes down. A bunch of good fights. There's a few spots, few fights where there's just not enough information, so we should probably stay away from them. I'll let you guys know when I think that's the case. There's a few places where I do think I'm going to make a bet. Still looking into a lot of it, but I'm very hyped to get into it. So we'll hop right into the card. And for this first fight right here, we've got Hugo Guillon versus Frank Martin. Now, Hugo is 3-1-0. He's 6'4". Don't have any other information on him. And in terms of his camp, I do think I might have that. Let me check. No, I wasn't able to find his camp. For Frank Martin on the other side, no information at all. Trains out of ZR Team Nice. Now, this is a last-minute replacement. Guillon was supposed to fight someone else. And Martin seems to have never fought in MMA at all. Doesn't have any pro fights. Doesn't have any amateur fights. If you look on his Instagram, it does seem like he's been competing in some kind of striking sport. I think it's kickboxing. And then in terms of his BJJ, he's a black belt, and he took second place at the ADJS. It's an Abu Dhabi Jiu-Jitsu Pros tournament, so not a bad look. I think that you can't make any real decision here, you have no idea how Martin even throws a strike, right? So you just can't. And then on the Guillon side, 6'4", so we know he's going to be tall, very solid wrestling, very strong top control. He was beating Matthew Byfield till the groin hit no contest. The Jackie Jean fight, I didn't even really catch what happened. He was just dominating and then got reversed and lost in the last few seconds of the first round. I think that clearly Guillon is a prospect they're trying to push in this promotion. I understand why, but no matter what the odds end up being, I don't get how you could play anything. Maybe if Martin is like plus 1,000, I'll take a shot. Like, go on his Instagram. Dude looks ripped. Clearly looks like an athlete, but not enough for me to think he's going to beat a guy like Guillon. So we're going to move on. Now, this fight we're going to spend zero time on because there's no info whatsoever. Neither man has fought in MMA at all. Not amateur, not professional. So Elvis Thapda, I know nothing about him. Cannot find anything. Kenzo Soares Silva, 21 years old, 6'2", training out of MMA Factory. Who's the head coach there? Fernand Lopez. Whose promotion is this? Fernand Lopez's promotion. So you have to imagine if we're getting a guy like Silva, young, big, making his debut, he's probably getting a setup fight. Not going to be able to bet this whatsoever. You'd have to be crazy. So we're going to move on. All right, this next one, it's another one with very little info, but it's kind of funny. We got Mehdi Tier versus Bakr Bathily. Tier is 4-0, undefeated as a pro, training out of Marseille Fight Club. Bakr is 7-4-0. Don't have anything in terms of height, age, weight. I mean, weight, we know the weight class is heavyweight, but he does train out of MMA Factory. Now, in terms of tape, very, very little tape on Bathily. I found 2 fights from 2020, and that's all I could find. And they were pretty hilarious. I'm not going to lie. In one of them, he got like this really nice trip off the guy, but like, he's one of these dudes who like is not an athletic heavyweight, if you know what I mean. But he seems to have good grappling, and that seems to be what he prefers to do, which you don't often see at heavyweight. His jab is pretty good from what I can see. He's got 3 submission wins, and like I saw him pull Kimura. That was pretty interesting. It's very hard for me to understand really what I'm working with Bathily because of the lack of information, but it is what it is. On the Tier side, very little info on his striking just because he just rushes into the takedowns. Decent jab himself. Striking looks a little bit janky, and he's pretty hittable. But he seems to be a very good wrestler. I mean, competition is questionable, but He seems to be a good wrestler. Has his takedown defense is decent. I would really like to know their measurables because if Tier is significantly bigger than Abu Bakr, I'm all in. I like his grappling. I think it should be enough. I don't know what Abu Bakr's takedown defense looks like, but he's not the most athletic fella. And I think that if Tier can get nice shots in, he will get him down, particularly if he goes for single legs. Not something I've seen from Tier, but that's usually how you want to go about taking down bigger, heavier men. So the pick is Tier. Right now, it's hard to know if I'm going to do anything with it, unless the odds are like super tempting. Too little information for me to put my money on it. Speaking of which, this is the fight we're going to pretty much skip completely. Jordan Zebo versus Caleb Nascimento. I believe Nascimento is a short notice replacement as well. Jordan Zebo, pretty good, honestly. He's a decent fighter, trains out of MMA Factory. He's got very solid wrestling, strong top control. But this guy, Caleb Nascimento, we know nothing about him. I scrolled down because I wanted to check. I'm pretty sure that Nascimento is a short notice replacement. I do not know anything about him. I did my best to locate some information. I cannot. So, A, will this fight even be bettable? More than likely, no. Will this fight play out close? I have no idea. I have to imagine it's Zebo. I have to imagine he's getting set up because he's an MMA Factory product, because he's young, because he's good. But I have no way to know that with Nascimento not having any information on him. So we're going to have to move right along. And for this next one, all right, again, weird fights after weird fight. We've got Mickael Groguhe versus Freddy Kemayo. Now, Mickael, he's 1-1-0. And only other information we have is that he's training out of Och Academy. Now, on the other side, for Kemayo, he's a kickboxer, was a kickboxer. He's 1-0 as a pro fighter, 40 years old, so he's definitely at the older side. And he made his debut literally last year, so he was 39 making his pro debut. He's 6'2", don't have a height for Groguhe, but I believe, at least I think that he seems smaller. But again, it's a complete guess. Now, Kemayo had a pretty decent kickboxing record, 71-28-1. Not bad. He's been doing it for a long, long time. 3-time French kickboxing champion. His debut fight, the guy wasn't that bad. And it was a guy who was training with Cyril Gane. But he was getting beat up in round 1. He was getting outstruck. He was getting beat up on the feet. But then he took over in round 2 and just got that finish. I honestly don't like what I'm seeing from Kemayo all that much. His takedown defense is abysmal. But I know nothing about Groguhe. I know that his jab looks pretty solid. His 1-2 looks pretty good, but I'm working off of exactly 30 seconds of tape. So what can I do? And like the guy that he fought there was 2-3-0. So he actually looked kind of good, did Groguhe, but can't make a play up based off of that information, right? So, gun to my head, make a pick. I mean, I'd have to imagine probably Kemayo, but they give me Groguhe plus 1,000 or something, I'll take a shot. Dude looked like he could strike, and Kemayo, even with his kickboxing background, it doesn't always transfer well. And to me, to my eyes, it doesn't seem to have transferred well just yet to MMA. So the pick is Kemayo. The play is not going to be anything probably, and we're going to move on. Sorry that a lot of this is no play, not enough information. Can't do anything about it. You never, ever, ever want to force plays. So we don't do that here. Now, for this next fight, we've got Assia Miri versus Fabiola Pidroni. Miri, she's 1-0, undefeated as a pro. 5'7", also training out of MMA Factory. As you can see, her picture is Cyril Gane over here. Pidroni on the other side, she's 4-0, undefeated as a pro. 29 years old. She's 5'3". So she's given up 4 inches in height, training out of is it IL Dojo Team? I believe so. And, I'm actually kind of surprised by the predictions over here. I didn't notice them before I started the stream. So, look, Miri is interesting because, first of all, her Muay Thai record is nasty. We're talking 103, 3, and 19. Maybe someone knows Muay Thai better than me. I don't know how the draws there work. So 19 seems like a lot of draws, but maybe it's normal. 103 wins, though. That's pretty impressive. She's only 19 years old. Don't love that, but she's 4 inches taller, and she's got really, really good striking. I mean, the second the fight starts, you can see her Muay Thai style, just like clear as day. I'd like to see a bit more leading with the hands. She prefers to counter when she's using the hands, and she leads with her kicks. If she can maybe just mix it up a bit more, which I imagine she will as her career goes on, I think she's going to really look really, really dominant in there in striking matches. Now, against Pidroni, she does have some wrestling, and I think that's what can make this interesting because the striking Pidroni is okay, serviceable, but she's way too hittable. And I think that if we're on the feet, Miri's just going to beat her up back and forth. The big question mark for me is, can Pidroni out-grapple her? Now, I'm working with very little tape on Pidroni. Most recent tape that you can watch was her last amateur fight in 2019. So really not working with all that much information, but if she uses that grappling, she can make this dirty. Like, I do think she's going to be the stronger woman. Like, again, Miri's 19 years old. She's still, I think she's still growing into her body. So who knows? But I do think Miri will be the much better striker. So probably not going to play this whatsoever. Can't even tell you where the odds are going to open up. I'm pretty curious myself. But unless I get Miri as a dog, I'm going to stay off of it because I think she outstrikes Pidroni. But Pidroni might have even improved her grappling even more. I'd have no way to know because I can't see it. So not smart to play it. We're going to skip it. The pick is Miri, though, and we're going to move on. Quick catch up to the chat. Nick Sisson, what's up, bro? Seen you on quite a few podcasts. First time I caught you live on yours. Thank you for tuning in, man. I appreciate that big time. Always dope when new people hop in. Moy's saying Miri is awesome. I really like her striking, man. It was super dope to watch. Like, you just see the Muay Thai style immediately. And Big Brain MMA podcast. Sleep is for the weak or for the dead. I forget the saying. It's been a long week, but thanks for tuning in, man. All right, so back to the fights. The pick there is Miri, and we're moving on to weird. That's what I'm going to say here. It's weird. Ammari Diedrick versus Karim Ghaji. Diedrick's 2-1-0. He's 5'11". Don't have his reach. Don't have his age. In terms of his gym, I don't have that as well. I don't have it for either of these. We're lacking a lot of info for a lot of these guys. Now, Karim Ghaji on the other side, he's 3-2-0, 42 years old. So he's definitely on the older side. I thought I got Diedrick's age. Looks like I didn't. That's annoying. No, I did. He's 6 years younger. So Diedrick is 35. All right. And then 5'10" for Ghaji, so he's 1 inch shorter. He's got a 73-inch reach, just about. And I believe Ghaji also has a kickboxing background. Yes, more of an impressive record than the last one. 121, 17, and 1. But look, he's 41 years old. He's got some of the worst takedown defense I've seen. He lost his Josimowicz fight via ground and pound in the first round. It's now a win for him, so I imagine that Josimowicz must have popped, but I don't know. And the fight after that, he just got out-grappled completely. His striking, like, yeah, it does look good, I guess, but it's not like you look at him and you're like, oh, wow, he strikes like Izzy does. Not even close. Like, not even like Dustin Jacoby, really. Like, I feel like Dustin Jacoby would wash him. So while he does have this kickboxing background, I think that he's on the older side, and I think that's catching up. So even his striking doesn't look that great in martial arts, mixed martial arts. And then his takedown defense, just don't even get me started. So for Diedrick, he's not wrestling. He's a striker himself. Also a glory kickboxer. I could not find his record, so I don't think he's had as many kickboxing bouts. But I like what he does on the feet. I think he's going to be the better striker, at least in MMA. I think he's going to be landing the better shots. He seems to have the better power as well. He's going to be younger, like I mentioned, 1 inch taller. If somehow Ghaji starts shooting, because he does have 2 sub wins over Not quality opponents, but he has those wins. I think that Diedrick has good takedown defense, and he's going to defend. Now, one thing I do want to mention is if you look at Diedrick's page on Tapology, he is flagged. He's flagged because of a 2021 fight. It was in a promotion that isn't flagged itself. I guess just this fight in particular was flagged because his opponent was 140-0, something like that. And Tapology was just like, all right, like, come on, you won in 30 seconds. This was clearly record padding. So they don't count that on his record, and it's not included on the other guy's record as a loss either. So just worth mentioning. Since then, he had 2 fights in Aries FC. So like he's been fighting. It's not like his only wins or his only good fights were against that guy in the record padding promotion. Like he's fought in Aries FC. He lost his last fight against Batouche, but before that, he won against a guy who actually had pretty good grappling, and he was able to make it through, implement his game, and finish the fight. So I do like Diedrick here. Diedrick's going to be my pick. Whether he's going to be playable is a whole nother story. I don't know. I'm not sure how people are going to feel about Ghaji at Ghaji's age too, but pick is definitely Diedrick, and we're going to move on. No bet as of now. All right. So for this one, I'm not going to have something confident for you guys, unfortunately. We've got Levi Steedman versus Alexandra Tekenah. Steedman is 1-2-0. She's 5'5", training out of SBG Manchester. And then Tekenah on the other side is 2-1-0, 5'6", so she's 1 inch taller, 69-inch reach. Did I get Steedman's? I did not. And I actually couldn't figure out where Tekenah's training from, but she has been fighting in Aries FC. That's where she fought last. Pulling it up real quick, because I don't remember exactly where Steedman's last fight was. So I remember these two for Tekenah, and then Steedman. Right. Okay. I was doing all this yesterday. So this one's interesting to me. I do think that Tekenah's probably just better overall. But I will say that I don't like her striking defense all that much. She does hold a high guard, but what she does with it doesn't really add up. She's winging her strikes a lot. I mean, there's a lot of good forward pressure. She will sometimes kind of just be a little flat-footed, a little easier to hit then. And she will wing her strikes, but she has a good jab, decent combinations. In the pocket, she's very good. And she's not going to be that much smaller this time. She's oftentimes smaller, so it's harder for her to strike. And I think she should be good here. Moy's bringing up a good point that I think is relevant. Tekenah hits really hard. So with that and her pressure, I think that's going to be a big thing here. I actually like Steedman striking too. I low-key think she's got the straighter strikes, the better combinations. I think she mixes targets better. And I really like how she goes to the body because it's not something you see often at these weight classes. Her takedown defense for Steedman is pretty good, but it's not like Tekenah's really wrestling. Neither of them really wrestle much, so not really a concern on either side. I just feel that, I don't know, the more I looked, my first thought after watching the tape was I like Steedman. And while the competition edge definitely goes to Tekenah, Steedman's fought Dakota Decheva too on the amateur scene. So it's not like she's only fought scrubs. I just feel that even though Steedman is maybe cleaner at range, I don't think Tekenah's going to give her that possibility. She's going to close that distance. She's going to bring it into the clinch. And in the clinch, Steedman can struggle, and Tekenah's good in the clinch. So I think Tekenah wins this fight using her output, her pressure, and her clinch game. But don't be shocked if Steedman's out here landing nice, clean shots. I'm telling you guys. I was pretty surprised when I first saw her striking. But we'll move along to the next fight. This is one that makes no damn sense to me whatsoever. We've got Pawel Biernat versus Faycal Hussein. Pawel is 4-0 undefeated as a pro, right? He's a heavyweight. And I say this because it's relevant. And this fight is at heavyweight. He's 6'4". For his camp, I believe we're going with what it says here, MMA Tadores. And on the other side, you've got Faycal Hussein, 12-4-0. He's 35 years old, 6'1", so he's 3 inches shorter. Him, I believe he's at MMA Factory now. And the question mark here is why? Why him? Why this weight class? The last time he fought was at a catch weight that was supposed to be like 205, and he still weighed in at 186. And then before then, it was middleweight his entire damn career. He's never fought a heavyweight. Why is he doing it here? I've got no clue. If anybody knows why, that information would definitely help me. I just don't get it. And then he's also hasn't been very active before his last fight. The one before then was 2017. So a lot of question marks there. Why is he at this weight? How is he going to perform at this weight? Is he even going to weigh in close to the heavyweight limit? All question marks for me. And then Biernat, you got one video of him that you can watch. 3 minutes of tape. And it's like they couldn't make the angle worse. So it's in a cage, right? And it's one of those cage angles. So you're in the audience and you have to watch through the cage. And because of their height and how tall they are and the height of the cage, their faces are completely blocked off. So I can sometimes see when the punch is thrown, but you can't see when it's landing. Something happens, someone falls over. Was it a takedown or a hit? I don't know. So watching those 3 minutes of him was a struggle, to say the least. He looks decent, but I'm like filling in blanks in my head. So like, really, you can't do anything with this information. I really like the wrestling of Houston. I will say that. If he's an abysmal dog for some reason, I'll take that shot, because I wouldn't be surprised if he mixed in wrestling. It's just like he's a middleweight. Can he wrestle heavyweights? I haven't seen that. Is Biernat, does he have good takedown defense? I have no damn clue. So very little information for a lot of these fights, unfortunately. Not much we can do. I guess my lean here is going to low-key be Houston, because I actually think he's more experienced, at a better camp, and showed me something that he's actually good at, whereas Pawel just seems like okay at everything he does. So we're going to move right along. And now this one, I mean, I've got a clear side I like. I just don't think it'll be very close, although Topology seems to not agree so much. We've got Alexandra Mickael versus Baysengar Shamsudinov. Now, Mickael is 9-0 undefeated as a pro. He's 26 years old, 5'10", training out of Master Combat. On the other side, Shamsudinov, he's 5-0 undefeated as a pro. He's 21 years old, which I do not love, but it's kind of becoming a theme at this point. Fighters are just getting younger and younger and younger. There's literally a woman fighting earlier we spoke about who's 19. So becoming a thing, 5'10" as well. And he's training out of MMA Factory with our guy, Fernand Lopez. So yeah, I mean, let's start with Mickael, because I really like Shamsudinov. Now, I'm not positive what people like so much about him that the Tapology predictions are this close. Excuse me. There's only 3 minutes of tape on the guy. So anything I say, like, I'm working with very little information. I have not seen his wrestling tested, so that's a big thing. His striking just doesn't look very good, though. His output's very low. He's just all right on the feet, I guess. I feel like Shamsudinov's probably the better striker, or even no worse than that. And then the wrestling, like I said, I haven't seen Mickael tested there. I don't know exactly, but the dominance of Shamsudinov in the grappling, from what I've seen, his performance against Pele, who I also think is a really good fighter, to me was super impressive. I think Shamsudinov will probably run through him, probably have a dominant performance, but I almost sound like an asshole saying this because I'm working with 3 minutes of tape on Mickael Viana. So we'll see what happens. If Shamsudinov is playable, I'll be in it. If not going to throw crazy chalk on him. Too little information on Mickael for that. So the pick is Shamsudinov, probably by domination, probably by decision, but we'll see if it's going to be a playable line. Now, finally, we're up to somewhere where I can tell you for sure I'm going to have a play. Here we've got Gilly Zodelia versus Amin Ayub. Now, Odelia, he's 14, 5-0, 29 years old, 6'2". And as for his camp, do I wasn't able to find out. I did check his Instagram. It's just a bunch of pictures of like him and a little bit of him training, but no like gym pictures. Now, Amin Ayub on the other side, 16, 6-1, former Brave champion, 27 years old. He's 5'11", so he's 2 years younger. He's going to be, 3 inches shorter. And I've got him training out of Bangtao, which is a great camp, especially for someone like him. I think this fight is so interesting, man. So, starting with Ayub, right? His last two performances, not so impressive. He was fighting Lapalus, not Taylor Lapalus, his brother Damien, who is not as good. And, the first fight he lost via doctor stoppage. It was kind of weird. It was like because of his eye. But, like it's not like it was just like a foo-foo doctor stoppage from like a random injury. I mean, that injury was caused by Lapalus. And then they had a rematch pretty much very like right after and ended up being a draw. Do I agree with it being a draw? I honestly don't even know. It was hard for me to judge that fight. But for me, there's a few things that stick out that are good, and there are a few things that stick out to me that are bad. His striking, pretty good for the most part to me. I like his jab. I like the kicks. He's been good in the pocket. The combinations are great. I don't like how hooky everything is, how much he overswings. And I think he often is putting himself in very vulnerable positions. And that's why I think his striking defense is a little bit questionable. His offensive wrestling is pretty good, but he can get reversed in the second Lapalus fight. Got reversed in the first round. Now, his takedown defense, honestly, pretty impressive. In Brave, in the Ruzaboa fight, like he's getting taken down, and then he was just defending, reversing, getting up really fast. So, major credit to him for that. 8 submission wins. That's dope. Never been submitted himself. His opponent, Udelia, similar numbers, 8 sub wins, 1 sub loss. Ayub has good forward pressure. I don't know. I think that Odelia is going to have the perfect style to edge this out. Now, Odelia, slick jab, nice 1-2, great combos. He uses his length very, very well. And that's what I think is super important here. Because Ayub, he's a banger. And he wants to close that distance, get in the pocket, and swing and bang. But he's very hittable at range. If Odelia is just circling around, picking his spots, he'll be landing that 1-2. He'll be landing that jab all day long. He's a bit hittable himself, but he does use that length well, like I mentioned, so I think he should be fine. His own offensive grappling is pretty good. The defensive grappling is a little questionable. He had a fight with Thibaut Guti, who took him down in both of the first 2 rounds. I don't think it worked in the third, but it was a split decision. I felt like Thibaut clearly won, but what can you do? I like Udelia here, man. I like the 4 inches in height. I like the 4-inch reach advantage. I like his striking at range. I like the fact that he can grapple as well. I like the fact that Ayub is really hittable. So yeah, I think I'll be playing Udelia as long as he's an underdog or maybe like pick a mods. Wouldn't play him at like anything too crazy. I do think Ayub is live using his pressure, but I like Udelia here quite a bit. That's going to be a play that I'll be making as long as the odds are what I think they will be. So we'll move on to our main event. And I imagine that a lot of us hardcores are probably pretty hyped for this one because this is one of the guys that like a lot of us just won the UFC already. He's been asking for it. We've been asking for it. And it just hasn't happened yet. So we've got Abdoul Rahimov, the Lazy King, versus Rafael Heretic. Now, Abdoul, he's 15-1-0. He's 27 years old, 5'10", training out of MMA Factory. And then Heretic on the other side, he's 16-4-2, 35 years old. So he's going to be, what is that? 6 years older? Yeah, 6 years older. Or no, that's 8 years older. 6'1", he's going to be 3 inches taller, 70, let's call it 78-inch reach. I do think I got Lazy King's reach, but I don't remember. No, I didn't end up getting it. But all right. So what do we know about the Lazy King? His grappling is super dope. He's a really, really, really good grappler, really strong wrestling. He's got 10 submission wins, nasty ground game, nasty transitions. And he's going to be 8 years younger here, which is great for somebody who's going to need his cardio to wrestle and wrestle and wrestle. His striking and striking defense is where I'm a little concerned. And Heretic's size is going to play into all that. So Abdurakhimov in his striking, like, it's all right, but I'm not seeing too much in his hands, and I'm like, wow, he's an incredible striker. It's serviceable, and he's looking to counter a lot, not leading enough. Heretic, he hits hard, and he's a pretty good striker. He defends himself well. He could wing a bit as well, but I don't think it's that bad. And I think he's very good in the pocket. So I low-key do think that on the feet, with his 3 inches of height advantage, and I do think he's going to have a reach advantage, I kind of see Heretic finding a lot of success on the feet. Now, all that said, his takedown defense is pretty good, but when he fought Bakov got him down every single time pretty much until later on he tired out and the tide turned. But what did he get him down with? A single leg. What's Abdurakhimov really good with? Single legs. And, Heretic has been submitted once, but it was by Dricus Duplessis. So it's like, and I think it was a guillotine, but that was 2016. I really do think that Abdurakhimov should smoke him. I think he's going to out-grapple him, probably find a sub. It's important to remember that Heretic has fought guys who have also had that style on the ACA regional scene. He's low-key probably had the harder competition because he was on ACA, whereas for Abdurakhimov, not one of his Aries FC opponents has been younger than 35. So there's a lot of question marks here. I'd be careful parlaying Abdurakhimov. I'd be careful playing chalk on Abdurakhimov. I'm sure they'll open him at like minus 300 or so. I don't know if I'll end up being able to find a way to play it. I do like Abdurakhimov. He's the pick, but I can't really tell you much more than that without seeing the odds. I think Heretic is going to be live. I think a Heretic KO isn't out of the realm of possibilities, but I'm going to go with the stud and Abdurakhimov, and I'm going to hope that if he can get this done, he finally gets signed to the UFC, but we're going to have to see about that. So thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate every single one of you. It's been a big week of content for me, so it's been good to be back. Tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, doing my first ever Twitter space with my co-host, MMA Propaholic. Should be a good time. Make sure you guys tune into that. We're just going to be doing props, talking props for UFC Vegas 67, which is a prop-focused show. And should be a good time. We'll be passing around the mic, shooting the shit, pull up, let's talk some fights. Thank you to everybody who was watching today, who's watching now, and have a good one, guys.